One of the most important primetime games of the season is going to be Jacksonville Jaguars versus the New York Jets. Who would have thought that this game would have the playoff implications, huh?
Week 16, man, I would have never thought that. This would usually just be one of these garbage throwaway games. All right, well, let's get into it. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. As you can see, I am not in my home location. I am in Sedona for the holidays, so bear with us if the audio or whatever isn't as perfect. I don't have a secondary screen, so things will be a little bit slower, but hey, we still got the same information coming to you. We are talking Jaguars and Jets, Week 16. Jets favored by 1.5 at home. It's going to be cold. It's going to be rainy. We don't quite know how bad it's going to be, but most likely it's going to be, in the 40s with 10 to 15 mile per hour wind, and it's most likely going to be raining. So in saying that, all these crazy weather games that we have going on and the crazy weather games that we've seen in the past recently, how much weight are we really putting on rain and cold in a game like this? Are we eliminating the pass game? Are we saying screw it to kickers? I don't think we really need to do that. What are your thoughts on this particular matchup with the weather?
Yeah, man, I'm not sure that the weather really concerns me as much as it has in prior slates. I mean, we talked about it the other night with the Buffalo Miami game. The weather was supposed to be awful, and it ended up being a shootout. Now, obviously, Zach Wilson is not the same thing as Tua or Josh Allen.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
it could impact him and his consistency a little bit more. But even then, I mean, we were doing a little research earlier. Jacksonville, their defense is just bad at everything, it seems. So again, like I'm more convinced that these offenses have a better chance of doing better than the weather does of shutting it down.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I mean, the Jets defense is pretty good. We've seen this year. They're solid, especially their pass defense and their two cornerbacks. What do you have? Sauce Gardner, and who else do you have? DJ Reed. These guys are crushing, and going up against Zay Jones and Christian Kirk. I mean, those are good. They're good dudes. They've overachieved this year, I feel like, and having a new coach, Doug Peterson coming in, that's a big deal for this team. We've clearly seen it. I'm like an hour and a half away from Jacksonville, and people are kind of excited. Not quite. They're not quite excited yet, but people are kind of getting excited for this team and Trevor Lawrence. So, Trevor Lawrence in primetime, I'm taking him over over Zach Wilson, in my opinion. I know the defense for the Jets is good, but I think the Jaguars can come out and surprise. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, man? This is going to be a close game.
Yeah, man. I think the Jacksonville offense is kind of finding its groove. And we got to remember, this is pretty much Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, right? I mean, he had a year of Urban Meyer, and that didn't count for anything. So he's tearing it up. I do think that we might see a little bit more mean regression when it comes to some of the like second, third, and fourth string wide receivers, particularly Zay Jones. But I do think that there are going to be opportunities for that offense to be pretty explosive. Again, the Jets, their offense is so inconsistent that just it can turn into a bunch more extra possessions for Jacksonville. And when a defense is tired, that's how you give up points, even if you're a really good defense, man.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, they had 200 plus yards receiving last week. Obviously, we know about that Jaguars win against the Cowboys with that pick six to end the game. That was incredible. But now you're looking at a much better pass defense and probably just a better defense overall in the Jets, which I never thought I'd say that. They're third in defensive rating in the pass game and third in yards per attempt. I mean, they're looking pretty damn good. So what jumps out to you here with these numbers? This is basically a pick 'em. I mean, for the most part, right? Look at the ownership, but the biggest thing that we got to really focus on is this over under, this total 37.5. I think a lot of that obviously has to do with probably Zach Wilson starting. They had a disappointing week last week. No Mike White. You don't have that magic that Mike White provides, which is crazy for me to even say that. You're talking about a first round pick, a high draft pick that has been relegated for is Mike White undrafted, or is he like a sixth? I mean, he's not a highly touted scout, or scouted player. So it's kind of interesting to me where we're at. I think I saw a video today with Zach Wilson bought his offensive lineman a bunch of like scooters or some shit like that. He's probably trying to suck up and get the team back on his back. So this is a big deal for Zach Wilson. This could like sort of make or break his season if you think about it. If he comes out and gets a great win and plays well, and this team is set up to make the playoffs, I'm not saying that they're going to stick with him, but he's got to come out and win this game. He's got to perform well. And even if he doesn't perform well, if they just come out and win, maybe the coaching staff will have a little bit more faith in him later down the year. But I think this is like a must-win for Zach Wilson and the Jets because they're kind of trending down while the Jaguars are trending up. But the Jaguars are 6-8, and the Jets are 7-7. This is going to be a great game. Anything else to talk about here? Or do you want to jump into injuries?
No, let's jump into injuries.
All right, I don't have a graphic set up, so you'll have to forgive me for that. But I do have some information here. So basically, if we're looking at injuries, not a whole lot to talk about. I think the biggest news, obviously, there's Mike White news. Trevor Lawrence is technically questionable, but he's going to play, obviously. For the Jets, obviously Mike White is out. You got Denzel Mims is out. And who else was out? There was another wide receiver. It was Jeff Smith, I think, is going to be out. Are you seeing any other players that we need to really focus on here? Obviously, now, Zaven Knight. Wait, why did I call him Zaven? Zonovan Knight. Sorry, they have him as Bam Knight here in Fantasy Cruncher. Zonovan Knight is questionable, but he's expected to play. So what have you seen when it comes to that? And what are we going to do with Zonovan Knight, going into the game questionable? Does that downgrade him a little bit in your thoughts as far as this is probably going to be a heavy running game with all the weather?
Yeah, man, I don't know if I'm going to downgrade it. If he just because he's questionable, I think just kind of we talked about this on other shows before. Just when you're coming into a game like this with a questionable back, I think it does open up a little bit more opportunity. Some of the backups, just because you might be running into a more reserve snap count, even if he is 100% ready to go. I mean, he could get curtailed back to 65, 70%, and that could add additional usage to the other guys. And let's not forget, guys like Michael Carter, he was supposed to be the number one coming into the season. So,
yep.
There really is that piece of news is important. So we'll be keeping an eye on it. Join the Discord, did a little scan me thing there underneath Tyson's beard. We'll be able to keep you guys up to date on stuff like that. I'll be trolling Twitter pretty much all day tomorrow, trying to find some information out.
And not that I'm super interested in a guy like James Robinson, but worth mentioning, he's pretty priced down, but I think he's still like the number 3 dude. I don't think that he's really going to get much run. But you got Ty Johnson and Michael Carter probably would get a bulk of those carries if Zonovan Knight is out, but it looks like he's going to play. All right,
real quick on the James Robinson thing. I'm pretty sure he's one of those players that was traded for a pick that goes up. The pick value goes up if he plays a certain amount of time.
Really?
So
okay.
Just keep that in mind. Yeah.
I mean, revenge game for him if he does get in. Not a whole lot I'm super interested in, but worth mentioning. All right, let's get into this breakdown here. Break it down. All right, so we've got Zach Wilson at 9,800, and you got Trevor Lawrence at 11.4K. What are your thoughts here, man? Honestly, Zach Wilson's actually projected higher than Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, most likely is because of that matchup against this Jets defense. And the Jaguars defense isn't anything to write home about. You could see their defense first position with Trevor Lawrence their first, and then it's the complete opposite with Zach Wilson. So what are your thoughts on Zach Wilson here, man? He actually had a pretty decent week last week. I know they lost, but he had 23 fantasy points, 35 attempts, threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. So what do we do with both of these quarterbacks? I mean, there's not a whole lot of pay up guys that I'm super interested. It might be the safest route to throw in 2 quarterbacks in your lineups. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this is a great slate to play 2 quarterbacks. I think if we look specifically at his game against Detroit last week, that's essentially the same kind of porous defense he's going to be playing. And even if he struggles, it looks like there should be opportunity for him to pay off. And let's be honest, man, him underachieving. It's not because he doesn't have the talent around him. Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, he's got the wide receivers that can make the plays. So again, just a porous defense. I think that he's fine to play, and especially with his price. Like, I still think he should be priced up a little bit more just because of his performance last weekend against this defense. Building is not too crazy tough on this slate, so I think you're fine playing him. Now, the one thing I think we might want to keep in mind is this might be a slate where you intentionally fade one quarterback in certain builds, just because the pricing is so soft and it is easy enough to get both quarterbacks in there, right? Maybe you want to grab Trevor Lawrence and a bunch of his offense, and then you only run it back with Zonovan Knight or whatever his name is, and then I don't know, Garrett Wilson, right? I think there's a world in which you can do that, but again, we need to keep an eye on Zach Wilson's ownership, because I think the public's pretty hesitant to play him in. I think his ownership should come in like probably 35%.
What's interesting is he's actually getting more ownership, slightly higher ownership than Trevor Lawrence right now. When it comes to projections. Now that could all change, obviously, and I think they're right neck and neck when it comes to captain ownership too. So if that's happening, it's just hard to know. These are still not very good teams. They're young, they're inconsistent, they're teams on the rise, but they're not good teams yet. So I just don't know what to expect from these guys. I can't just be like, yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to throw for 300 yards and jam him into 90% of my lineups. I don't want to do that in this slate. I don't know who the hell is going to do well. It's kind of one of these slates that you got to kind of spread yourself out. At least that's what I'm going to do. Typically if we're playing, if this is a Chiefs slate or something, I'm just going to plug Mahomes and Kelsey into every one of my lineups and get different in the captain or something. In this case, I'm not doing that, man. I think I'm going to cap these dudes out like around 50%, 60% maybe at most, and then just move on from there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I think you got a little bit more concentrated offense on the Jet side, but like you could end up with anybody scoring on the Jag side of the ball. I think, especially when you have two elite corners, or at least one really elite corner, and a pretty solid defense. I think broken coverage is going to allow bigger plays for somebody random. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Get some exposure to pretty much everyone.
And I think you can play both these guys a captain too if you want. I really do think you can. I don't think that's a problem. All right, let's go to running back. Let's start with, who do you want to start with? Jacksonville? Does that work?
Yeah, let's start with Jacksonville.
All right, so Travis Etienne is 9,600. Dude's been balling lately. Balling last week. If you look at some of his past outputs, not great, but we're looking at a pretty inconsistent team here. But look, the carries are there. He got 19 carries last week, 100 yards, no touchdowns. His last touchdown was week 9 against Vegas. So if he starts putting up some touchdowns, these numbers are going to be in the 20s and 30s, sort of like he was earlier in the year. I got to think that Travis Etienne in a heavy rain game where it could get ugly is probably going to be the highest owned captain, right? I mean, you would think he's going to be up there.
Yeah, man, he should be a pretty chalky captain, and like I think when we're looking at his prior performance too, I outside of Baltimore, like none of these games are really close. So at a certain point, you're down by a bunch. Like you're kind of game scripting out your running back from that perspective. But this is supposed to be a fairly competitive matchup, and I think he's fine. He's in a great position. He's going to get a lot of targets. That's one of the things that I like about him. He's getting targets and he's getting involved in the pass game as well. So, it doesn't need to be crazy, but if your running back is just running back only on DraftKings, it really hurts from the PPR perspective. So I like him at captain, probably more for cash builds, but 9,600, he gives you a little bit of flexibility too.
To me, he could get great game scripted out of this, but to me, this is his game script. Like, he could catch, if it's raining and it's muddy and it's nasty, he could catch a handful of balls out of the backfield and as an extension of the run game, and also probably get you 20 carries. Like, I'm going to put my money on him. I really think that he will be my highest owned captain because I think he might come in under the quarterbacks as far as ownership. And if that's the case, I think he has a pretty high ceiling. And at 9,600, you can really fit. I mean, he's cheaper than Zach Wilson. So I don't know, man. I'm very interested in Etienne. You got JaMychal Hasty at 2,800. We've seen big plays out of him in the past, but he's just not really getting as much volume. I think he's right around 25% of the snaps. The main dude here is Travis Etienne. Barring any injuries or barring any weirdness, he's going to get a lot of touches And I feel more confident with him getting getting a touchdown and getting a handful of receptions than I would with any of these wide receivers against this better defense. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's go to the Jets. So this is going to be interesting. So Zonovan Knight, aka Bam Knight, 7K. I mean, if he was 100% healthy, he might be one of the guys that I would lock in. Like, I know I mentioned I probably don't want to do that a lot, but he on paper he's just a great price, great matchup, and you got to think he's going to get a decent amount of touches. But he's banged up a little bit. So how much stock do you put into that? Are you worried about that at all? Obviously, we got to wait for inactives to come out later tonight or before lock. And we also want to kind of see him on the field warming up and read some reports about this. But, man, you got to think that at 7K, he's a great captain option, a great flex option if he's fully healthy.
Yeah, man. Look, it's pretty simple. I'm gonna treat this situation like I would NBA. There's a bunch of guys here that are pretty much interesting, but I'm gonna go with whoever starts. If Zonovan Knight is ready to go, and he's the starter, this is a great matchup for him. Again, Jacksonville is just really not good at anything on defense, so I really think this is an opportunity for him to have kind of a breakout game. And again, this isn't news. This isn't groundbreaking analysis in any capacity. But if you want to keep the ball out of an offense's hands, best way to run the ball. Burn clock and see what your guy can do. But again, if he's out, Michael Carter is priced pretty similar. I'll probably have a shitload of him. And then I don't know. We'll see. If he's out, also that $200 Ty Johnson is nice, but only if he's out.
Yeah, so I do want to mention Travis Etienne in the previous section here. He's getting five yards a carry, and the Jets' rush defense is only giving up 4. So it's still not a great matchup for Etienne, but I think that he'll get there when it comes to the volume. When it comes to the Jets side of things, you're right, man. Michael Carter at 6,400. You're right. He was the guy coming into this season. I even think that it's still a good handcuff play with Zonovan Knight and Carter together. You put one of them at captain, put another one in the flex in a game like this. I don't know, man. I kind of like that. It's a little risky because I just don't know how much volume Carter is going to get. But look, if Zonovan Knight is out, I'm jamming in Ty Johnson. I'm jamming in Michael Carter. And I might think about a little bit of James Robinson, even though it's a little bit risky because I just don't know how much he's going to get. But you just never know. Any thoughts on any of these other guys before we move on?
No, not really. Like I said, if what's his name is out, then I'll play a little bit of Ty Johnson, and then we'll see what's up with James Robinson's status. But other than that, like Michael Carter's my guy if Zonovan's out.
All right, so wide receivers here. So Garrett Wilson's 9K for the Jets. Corey Davis, 5,600. Elijah Moore, 4,800. Braxton Berrios, 1,600. And Denzel Mims is actually out for this one. So you've got, let's see, is there anybody else that we need to talk about? Probably not. These are the top 4 dudes that you consider playing at wide receiver. You see that defense versus position. This is a good matchup. We just got to figure out how much the weather is going to affect things. And hey, Zach Wilson, if this Jaguar defense can actually put pressure on Zach Wilson, I think he got sacked a handful of times last week. He got a ton of pressures, so that is worrisome if you're the Jets, and if you're Jacksonville trying to establish that line of scrimmage there, man, they could really cause some trouble for him. But the reason why I bring that up is just because Zach Wilson's not really super reliable, and they got to throw he's got to get the ball to guys like Garrett Wilson for them to score. So Garrett Wilson's obviously like the top option here. You put him at captain, you put him in the flex. I really like him. Any interest in any of these other guys like Corey Davis? Probably Elijah Moore in a game like this too. I know that Elijah Moore hasn't really had a ton of success with Zach Wilson in the past, but in a game like this where they might need to run the ball a little bit more and get a little bit more creative, maybe I'm a little bit more interested in him at 4,800 instead of maybe pay up a little bit from a kicker and get a guy like Elijah Moore. So thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure Corey Davis was out last week. Can you pull him up real quick?
Yeah, I don't know what his status has been like, man. He's been in, he's been out. Week 14. Yeah, his last game was week 14.
Okay, so like I think that really kind of impacts a little bit of Eli Moore. If Corey Davis is back, I think he's kind of a preferred number two as opposed to Eli Moore. But again, we really don't know, and both guys are priced fine. In fact, Eli Moore at 4,800 is very interesting to me, just because we know what his ceiling is. He had an incredible year last year, right? Like he we know what his ceiling is.
Captain for him.
But
He's a good captain option at
what?
$4,800
Oh,
captain with a high ceiling.
yeah, for sure.
It's
I mean,
it's
look, this
risky
is a
though,
matchup to get
obviously.
right.
So
Yeah, I mean, this is a get right matchup for these guys, right? Like your offense can find a little bit of consistency against a defense that isn't able to stop anything. You did well last week against Detroit. Now continue that momentum. This is a great opportunity for Zach Wilson to kind of be consistent with his offense. But real quick on Garrett Wilson, yeah, I'm going to keep it simple. He's at this point he's top 10 wide receiver in the league. You play him a captain, you play him in flex. He'll probably be my highest owned jet. Just being completely transparent.
yeah,
And then look, Braxton Berrios is interesting. It's 1,600. He is going to get involved in end rounds. He's going to get involved in some bullshit jet sweeps. And he's again playing just as shitty as a defense. If there's one guy that's going to get lost, it's the guy who's 4'6", 112 pounds. So look, man, he will have an opportunity to get up the field. So if you're looking for something in a 150, I don't mind jamming him in as a punt.
yeah, agreed. Let's move over to Jacksonville here. So Christian Kirk is at 10.2K. He's expensive. We know his upside. We know what he's capable of. A guy like Zay Jones at 8,200 is trending way up. If you look at some of his past games, man, my goodness. 37 fantasy points last week, 21, 30, 14, 24. You have a decent amount of red mixed in here. At his price tag at 8,200, you're going to need one of these at least 14.8 fantasy point games. He's a little bit riskier. He's, in my opinion, a boom or bust play, especially going up against this defense. I think he's a good captain option. I don't know how much I'm going to play him in the flex, but look at this: 14 targets, 10 targets, 12, 7. I mean, he's connecting with Trevor Lawrence. However way they're doing it, it's working. I don't expect them to stop doing that. So you probably got to expect at least 6 or 7 targets. Whether or not he converts those targets into actual fantasy points, that's another thing. But it's all about opportunity in Showdown. And if he's getting those targets, I got to be interested in him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, he had a pretty solid performance against the Dallas defense, which isn't a bad defense, right? We know how well that they're supposed to play. But I don't know, man. Like I think your point about playing him at captain is probably the optimal way to use him. At 8,200, he's going to need 15, 20 points to pay off probably. And if he's getting close to that 15 to 20 points, then he may be the optimal captain at that price tag, right? Just because he gives you a little bit of flexibility. So I think you prioritize him there. I'm not going to have much of him outside of that, right? Because like, again, like these two corners or Sauce Gardner, that is the cornerstone of their defense right now. So, if they come out and let fucking Zay Jones, who got cut by like 4 teams off the summer. He was supposed to be the 4th or 5th string guy on this team, and he's wide receiver too. Like, they're not gonna. I really don't think that they're gonna. It's gonna be a matter of pride for them. And I'm honest. Honestly, I'm interested to see what kind of defense they're going to be covering. Are we going to find out early if one of these guys is going to be shadowed by Sauce? Like that'll be interesting too, because again, that if Christian Kirk is going to see Sauce all day, then I might just load up on Zay Jones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So look, I think that there's opportunity. We need to pay attention to that. If you're a Jets fan and you have some inside track here, feel free to post in the Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. Marvin Jones, 5K. Not super interested in him. I think he's worth a shot here and there. A guy like Jamal Agnew at 2K is interesting. We know what he's capable of. Probably not going to see the field a lot as a pass catcher on offense, but we know, like I said, this is a weird game. A guy like Elijah Moore can benefit from a weird rain weather game where he can get some end arounds or a couple quick screen passes. Jamal Agnew is similar, and at 2K, nobody's going to play him. It's risky as hell, but we know. Look, 2K, he gets you 8 fantasy points. If he gets you 14 fantasy points, look at that. He's got a 21 fantasy point output against a tough Philly team. So I'm only bringing up Jamal Agnew just to mention that he's dynamic in the return game, and they might try to involve him a little bit more in a game like this. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. Look, again, at 2K, I'm really not hating any of these guys because you probably don't need to punt all the way down to 200 here on this slate. But I'm not going to put this offense on the caliber of the Chiefs or Justin Herbert. But we're seeing that Trevor Lawrence is throwing for 3-4 touchdowns a game, 250, 300 yards. So it's got to go somewhere. Jamal Agnew could easily break along with.
Tight ends. So look, Evan Ingram is finally the guy that we've expected him to be. The dude's been going off. It took him years, but look at that. 42 fantasy points, 14. That's not bad, man. Look, 162 yards on 15 targets against the Tennessee Titans with 2 touchdowns. Man, that's pretty impressive. 7,600 for Evan Ingram. They're obviously finding a connection between him and Trevor Lawrence. I think you can't sleep on him too much. I think he's a good captain option at 7,600 as well.
Yeah, so I'm more likely to have a more balanced exposure with Evan Ingram than I would say like Zay Jones. At 7,600, he can pay off that in the flex a little bit easier than an 8,200 price tag. And again, when you're going up against a really tough defense, especially two really strong corners, put a little bit of stress on the safeties and make them have to cover you one-on-one. Run your tight end up the middle and see if you can pull some help away from your stud wide receiver. So again, you're right on. I think this is a great opportunity for Ingram, and he could crush. I like him at captain as well.
Yeah, sorry, absolutely. Chris Manhertz, 200. Dan Arnold, 200. We all know about Dan Arnold. We know as a Cardinals fan, in theory, he's a good pass catching tight end. He just doesn't really see the ball much. $200, it's worth talking about though. You just need one random touchdown, or maybe you get 3 receptions for 50 yards, and that in a game that's a 37.5 point total. That might just be enough. So I'm not leaving any of these $200 tight ends out. It's a showdown slate, so you just can't forget about tight ends. We've learned that in the past. Let's go to the Jets side. So Tyler Conklin is 3,200. CJ Uzoma is 3K. Thoughts here, man. CJ Uzoma. Here, let me actually switch back to my. Sorry, man. Give me 1 second. Let me switch back to my other thing here. So CJ Uzoma is not the number 1 tight end on this team, but he caught 2 touchdown passes last week. We saw how good he was with the Bengals in the past. But Tyler Conklin is kind of the guy. Tyler Conklin's 3,200. CJ Uzoma, is 3K. What are your thoughts on these guys, man? I'm kind of interested in both of these guys.
Yeah, man, I think both are in play. Uzoma is he is more of like kind of a pass catching threat. Like I don't know if he has the same ability to block. So I think that may be why he kind of gets a little bit less snaps, but they're both priced fine. I think you can kind of just rotate them into your lineups. I mean, shit, we have a $4,600 kicker. So just playing one of these guys instead will let you get up to, Corey Davis or Eli Moore instead. Yeah. So, yeah, look, they're fine. They both going to get opportunities. I think Conklin even has touchdowns on the year. So, 2 touchdown game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Conklin is not as appealing. For whatever reason, he's getting like triple the ownership of Uzoma. I don't think that that's warranted. I really don't. I mean, look at this. I get it. There's a lot more green here because he's priced very, very low. But, it's very similar to Conklin. I think maybe both of these guys just probably don't have the volume that you want. But at 3,200 and 3K respectively, man, I got to be focused on these guys because, like you said, I could pay down in the last spot for a kicker and allow me to get up to another stud in the mid-range price. It might be worth throwing them in a couple of lineups. Do you have anything else to add here before we move on?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, again, the Jacksonville defense really isn't good at anything. So 3K, why not?
Yep, exactly. All right, let's go to our kickers here. So Greg the Leg Zerline, 4,600. Probably coming in between 20 to 25 ownership, 25% ownership, like typical. Riley Patterson, I've never heard of him in my life. He's 4K. They're kickers at the end of the day. But to me, I feel like I'm willing to risk. I know that these offenses may be more prone, especially the Jets offense, to stalling out in the red zone and maybe not being able to convert. But if it's 15-mile-per-hour winds and heavy rain in the cold, and it's 4th and 3 from the 35-yard line, they might just go for it, man. So you might actually lose out on a lot of opportunities. And just the first time a kicker kicks it into the wind and it flies 10 feet to the left, they're just not going to kick the ball anymore. This is the one game where I think that if I uncheck these kickers, I'm willing to risk it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, I'm kind of there with you. I don't know if I'll uncheck. I'll probably have a decent amount of exposure to both of them, just as kind of last piece fits, just whatever's comfortable with my hand builds. But yeah, man, like I know it's a low total. We can probably expect the under to hit, but 17 points for a team, that's still 2 touchdowns and 1 field goal. So what are we projecting? They got 5-6 points from one of these kickers. Like that just doesn't seem optimal at their price tag.
Yep.
I don't know. They could get there. They may not. I think there's just better plays.
I mean, wouldn't you rather play Elijah Moore 9 times out of 10 at $200 more expensive than Greg Zuerlein? That's just me personally, right?
Yes.
All right, defense. So this is something we do have to talk about. In a 37.5 point total, especially the Jets defense, which somehow is cheaper than the Jaguars. Jets 3,600, Jaguars 3,800. I'd rather play. Another reason why I'm not super interested in the kickers in this game is because I'd rather play the defenses. I'd rather play Elijah Moore. I'd rather play guys in that price range, or I'd rather just pay down a little bit and get some of these defenses. To me, they have a higher chance of hitting that number they need to get to be in the optimal, which is probably around 10 to 12 points potentially. Sacks, fumbles, but you might need one of these random scoop and scores or a pick six, which, hey, you got 2 young quarterbacks here. Just because Trevor Lawrence is doing well doesn't mean he can't throw a pick six. He's still a young guy. He's still learning. And, Zach Wilson, we know what he's all about. You got to be interested in these defenses in this particular game with the weather as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that I'm going to play both in the same lineup. Because for obvious reasons, and it just kind of limits your roster construction to a certain kind of build. But
yeah,
I think both guys are in play. I think paying 3,600 for the Jets defense might be a little bit better. Even 3,800 for the Jags defense might be better than 4,600 for a kicker, right? I think that's kind of what we're looking at, especially with such a low total. Like something doesn't make sense. Either DK didn't price these defenses accordingly, or maybe the total is going to hit the over. So yeah, they're in play with me just because of the defense or just because of the total.
Feels like they're mispriced for sure. And that's a huge deal. If you find a player that's mispriced for whatever reason, you probably want to jump on that, especially if they're like around 20% ownership. That seems like a pretty good play to me. I'm going to be interested in the defenses. All right, let's get to our captain option. Let's crown their ass.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, you're going Garrett Wilson. I'm going Travis Etienne. These to me, not the non-quarterback plays. These will be the most popular. I think there's so many other options in the flex, though. There's with roster constructions and just how you put your lineup together. You could still be very unique with playing these sort of chalkier captains. I like Travis Etienne's upside. I like Wilson's upside. Who else would you consider? I know we've talked about it throughout, but if people are skipping around, what are some other captains that you probably would be interested in here?
We haven't talked a lot about him, but I actually don't mind a little bit of Christian Kirk as well. Similar to the Zay Jones thing. What we've seen from the Jags offense is generally one guy has a big day, right? Like it was Evan Ingram, it's been Zay Jones a couple weeks. We've seen it from Christian Kirk. So I think if you want to get that side right, if you think one dude's going to have 2-3 touchdowns, rotate whatever piece. But I think Kirk's interesting. Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, ETN, Wilson. Probably outside of that, I don't think I'll go too crazy. Quarterbacks are fine too.
Yeah, Christian Kirk is interesting because he's not that trendy guy on the offense right now, but we know his upside. We know he has a 30-point upside, no problem, and we know he's the number 1 target on this team. The great thing about it is you have guys like ETN, Ingram, Zay Jones that are coming up that are really helping alleviate some of that double team or pressure that you're going to get on a guy like Christian Kirk. He might just be a little bit more open in this game, but hey, it's a tough matchup. So people are going to be a little bit scared away from him, especially if Sauce Gardner is on him, which, we'll have to do a little bit more research on that. Like I said, like Ellie said, if you're a Jets fan and you kind of know how this defense is run, please comment below. Help us out with that. We appreciate it. All right, let's get to our fades. Where are we? Let's do it.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
So Ellie, hey man, you got a zinger here, man. You're saying screw to Zay Jones, right? That's ballsy.
Yeah, man. I'm a bit tongue in cheek here. I think you can play him at the captain, maybe a little bit of flex. I don't know if I'll come with the full fade, but I mean, come on, like I don't know. I just feel like he's too expensive. He's not going to have another 3-touchdown game, and if he does, well, congratulations to everybody who played him at captain.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think he's had good weeks recently. Recency bias, his ownership is going to be higher. Obviously, his price is higher, so you're going to need one of these great games out of him again. It is a little worrisome, and you could probably get some decent leverage by just saying, nope, I'm not going to play him in as many lineups as the field. I do tend to agree with you on that, but I'm going to have a lot of him at captain just in case he has one of these nuclear games. Like I said earlier in the kicker section, kickers, to me, they're priced up so much, and with the weather and the wind and the rain, like I said, they might just not get the opportunities. And in a game where each team is kind of projected to score right around 17 points, how many points can you really get out of these guys? I don't know. It's risky, but I'm willing to kind of risk it a little bit with the kickers because, hey, they're kickers. They might not even get opportunities. All right, let's go to our lineup build. So we appreciate you guys. Throw us a like. Hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I think we can hit it this week, man. We're going to have a lot of shows this week. We're going to do a Saturday game. I think we're going to do the Saturday night game. We're going to put up a poll on our YouTube and also ask you guys in the Discord which game we should do for Sunday on Christmas. The Cardinals, typically speaking, it would be a Cardinals versus Buccaneers show, but I'm not doing a Cardinals show with Trace McSorley starting at quarterback. I'm not doing it. So we're gonna have to find another game to do on that day. So let us know in the comments what game you would like us to do for Christmas, and then obviously we're gonna do a Monday night game. We have like a lot of shows this week, so help us out. Hit subscribe if you want to be notified. Hit that notification bell. So let's just hit the button and see what happens. Travis Etienne at captain, both defenses. Zonovan Knight, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. Hey, that's not a terrible cash/single entry build. It really isn't.
Yeah, I don't think I can run that, man. I'm not a big proponent of two defenses.
Yeah, unless you like that, that screenshot, the screenshot life in the first 5 minutes of the game. Let's build our own here. So who do you want to start with? You want to build a cash or something?
Let's build cash. We'll leave ETN in.
Both quarterbacks.
Let's throw in both quarterbacks. Yeah. Can we get Garrett Wilson?
We should be able to. Where's he at? 9K. So we're gonna have to leave out a running back for the for the Jets, which is a little bit scary, especially in a game like this. So if you feel more comfortable, you can switch Zach Wilson out and put in Zonovan Knight or Michael Carter or whoever is gonna get the reps, depending on Knight's how injured he actually is. So 5,400. So you could do it one defense here. Do you want to do Jets defense?
Yeah, let's throw in Jets.
And then that leaves us with 1,800. So where does that put us? Braxton Berrios, Ty Johnson, any of these guys. Fine. That's not bad, I don't
those
like.
Those are fine for GBP, I think. I'm not sure I'd run this in cash, though. What if we pull out Garrett and put in Zonovan Knight or one of the Jags pass catchers?
Zonovan Knight, that's put you at 3,800. You can't quite get the kicker if you wanted to hedge a little bit, fade him in the GPPs and throw him in your cash lineup. Where does that put us? This is why both defenses made it. This is the exact lineup. It's perfect. You got $3,800 Jaguars defense. If you wanted to go down from them, Tyler Conklin, but I'm not putting Tyler Conklin in like a cash lineup. So, honestly,
what about this? Pull out Zonovan Knight. Put in Evan Ingram.
Okay. 3,200, even worse.
Never mind. I thought we were going a different direction. Damn.
Yeah. So hey, this lineup here, it might give you the highest upside, but I'm kind of a little bit worried to play both defenses. Especially, look, Jaguars offense is a top 10 offense in the league this year. So it is a little bit scary, even though the Jets defense is pretty damn good. I don't think I'm going to go super heavy on them. I'll just probably be right around the field. All right, what do you want to do next?
Let's throw in Garrett Wilson and see how hard it is.
All right, Garrett Wilson at captain. Do you want to fade a quarterback here?
Yeah, let's fade Zach. Let's throw in Knight and then just run back with 4 Jets.
Let's do Travis Etienne. Let's get some pass catchers for the Jags. Let's do a little stack with the Jags. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to kind of go low because all these dudes are priced up. Marvin Jones, I'm not super interested in. I mean, Evan Ingram at 7,600. That's probably maybe the closest. Like, it's pretty good value, I'd maybe say, as long as he has like the game he's had in the past few weeks. But then you're punting here. I don't know, man. What do we do here? This is a little bit risky. Do you want to go like an Uzoma or something, or Conklin?
Yeah. Well, how about
Kinda
this? What if
kills
we
our
go Corey?
2-4.
What if we go Corey Davis and then kind of just see what we have left over?
2,900. So
Michael Hasty, is that something we could do?
we could do it. It's not something I'm super excited about, but hey, it is an option. You want to do a defense here?
Yeah. Jets defense
You'll do
or
Jets.
Jags defense.
Let's do Jags. Yeah, let's do Jags here. 4,700. So now you got plenty of options. If you like the kickers and you want to rotate these kickers in, have a couple lineups and shit, you could even switch out Jaguars defense and put the Jets defense in, and then go back to the kicker well. Is there anybody so you can do Elijah Moore here too? Actually, that's kind of interesting.
What about instead of the Jets defense, go down to let's give Jamal Agnew a shot.
Yeah, let's do it. Where is
that?
he?
Right?
Jamal Agnew's at he's 2K. So 6,500. Where does that put us? Michael Carter, Corey Davis. I really think that the more lineups you build for this matchup, the better. I think I'm going to do one of my traditional like 200 plus lineup nights because I just want to be spread out as much as I can because I'm just not confident. Besides Garrett Wilson, Travis Etienne, and Trevor Lawrence, and maybe Zonovan Knight, depending on his injury status, I'm not super high on a lot of these other guys. We probably should do a Christian Kirk one, right?
Yeah, let's do a Christian Kirk one.
All right, let's do Christian Kirk captain. Where are you?
Let's do Kirk, and then ETN, and then see if we can do a run back with 4 Jets.
Okay, you want to do Zach Wilson with this one?
Yeah,
All
both
right.
Wilsons, the Wilson brothers.
Wilson brothers, 6,300. So now we're definitely in like an Elijah Moore range for sure, and then 1 punt. So 1,500. Can't quite get those tight ends. You know, we can't get Braxton Berrios either. So you probably got to do, unfortunately, like a Ty Johnson situation. We don't know what Zonovan, I don't know if he's going to even see the field, but you're going to have to rotate these guys in and out. I don't know, man.
So I pull out Eli Moore, and then here's an interesting bullet I would run in like maybe the Millie. So throw in Braxton,
Okay.
and then throw in Legatron, Greg Zuerlein. Like that's not awful.
Hey, I don't mind that. Do you want to build one more?
Let's do it.
You want to do Elijah Moore or something?
Let's do Evan Ingram.
Okay. Where's he at? 11.4K. All right, you want to put Trevor Lawrence with him?
Yeah, let's run Lawrence and ETN.
You want to run it back with a Zonovan Knight and a Garrett Wilson or something?
Let's try.
Can we do that? We can. We're punting here. Actually, look. Guess who's at 1,600. Boom. Braxton Berrios.
Yeah, that's fine, man.
3-3.
Berrios could easily have a rushing touchdown.
He could. All right. So, anything else you want to talk about here? We're gonna get running here. We're at 43 minutes. Anything else you want to mention?
No, man. I think you just got to be more flexible with the captain position tonight. We know really kind of the top tier plays, and to get different, it's going to be not playing all the chalk at captain.
Yeah, I think getting weird at captain could be a nice touch, but I am going to stick with the Garrett Wilsons of the world, the Travis Etiennes, and pay up. Pay up for a Christian Kirk, because I think that because he's so expensive. He might not be that high owned, but he still has that incredible upside. What's your final score prediction here with a 37.5 point total? You taking the under?
27-17. I guess I'm taking the over.
Yeah.
And I think Jacksonville wins this.
Yeah, I think I'm like 24-21 Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville can pull this one out. Although, there is something to say about this Jets team. They have been pretty tough. They have a tough coach. Maybe this is the perfect type of game for them to establish the run on the ground, really, really get that run game going. It allows Zach Wilson to move around in the pocket with some play action and throw the ball down to the field to some of these playmakers. I do think the Jets can win this game, but I think it's going to be close, and I think Jacksonville pulls it out. Who's your low-owned guy that you think can score in this game?
I got to go with Braxton Berrios, man.
I like it. Man, I don't even know. I'm gonna go with Jamal Agnew. It's a complete dart throw, but it's worth it's worth mentioning because I think that he could get a couple extra snaps just because of the weather in this game. And hey, shit, one weird missed coverage on a punt return. Hey, that's six fantasy points. Which, by the way, wouldn't it be so sick to add another element to Showdown, just to add an extra level by adding some kick and punt return points, like some very small amount of points, like a fraction of a point for every 10 yards or something like that, would be kind of interesting because you get a guy like Jamal Agnew or a guy, a kick returner that gets you 100 kick return yards in a game. Maybe that's an extra couple fantasy points that could really boost up some of these lower priced dudes. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I would like to see, in addition to that, I think even if they just made it like anything over 10 or 15 yards, like make it something that impacts the game, right? You get points for. And then on defense, I think they need to add points for turnover on downs. That's the same thing as a takeaway. It should count as a takeaway.
Well, especially with how much these teams are going for it on fourth down,
Right.
And there's got to be some benefit to us as fantasy players for these defenses stopping teams on fourth down. That'd be awesome. In the comments, let us know if there's any other scoring ideas you guys have, because I think that really DraftKings can really make this pretty fresh if they just added a couple small little elements like that. I think it would be pretty fun. All right, guys, we will see you for Saturday Night Football, Christmas Eve. I don't even know what game that is. I'm going to start researching that up right now after we get off of this. Throw us a like on the way out. We appreciate it. Ellie, you got anything else to say before we head out?
Nope. Be safe, everyone. Have a good night.
See you guys on Christmas Eve.